Hi, I'm Neil Nobel, editor-in-chief of the Prickly Pear. Thanks for joining us at the Cactus Patch. Our guest today is Jim O'Connor. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Neil, and great to be with you this afternoon. Beautiful day.
Jim was recently elected to the Arizona Corporation Commission, and he was elected as a write-in candidate, which is an historic event for Arizona. Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your race that you just won.
I'd be happy to do that. I happily took early retirement here in Arizona after a 30-year career in Los Angeles, where I owned and operated an investment advisory firm. My partner and I sold that company in 2001, and just prior to that, I had moved to Scottsdale, Arizona with my wife and son, and have really enjoyed Arizona greatly. Got involved in donating all of my time to a political calling back in 2006. That's 15 short years ago, and worked in the Republican Party as a volunteer precinct committeeman and held various positions in the party, serving on bylaw committees, member at large position in the state party, ran for state party chairman back in 2017 after having served 2 years as the chairman of the Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, and Rio Verde Republican district. It had been named LD23 or numbered LD23, but that'll be changing next January after the redistricting for the next 10 years.
Well, your race was a bit historic in that I don't recall anyone who's received as many votes as you did as a write-in candidate in Arizona history.
And your recollection would be excellent because no one ever had. I actually hold the now 109-year record of the state history of being the only individual in any party to have won as a write-in candidate in a statewide race. But let's get into the question you had asked earlier, and that is, why did I run for this office? And I'll start with 2018. In the fall of 2017, I was approached by a group of fellow senior citizens in the West Valley, specifically Surprise and Sun City area. And they had just experienced a rather dramatic 40% rate increase from Arizona Public Service for their power. And in that same time of year, they received about a 40% rate increase from EPCOR Water Company. And there was sticker shock, to say the least. And the group of Republicans over there recognized me to be a man of faith, most importantly, and a man of my word, in that I am a constitutional conservative Republican. So they recruited me to run for one of the two open seats in that election year. So I spent 10 months running for that position. There were 5 men in the race in the Republican primary. I finished third. I ran as a clean election candidate, unlike the two gentlemen that were traditionally funded that won the two primary positions and then went off to the general election. One of them having won that election, Justin Olson, who's been serving as a commissioner, and the other gentleman lost in the general election that year to Sandra Kennedy, who is currently serving with me on the commission.
What does it look like for the Arizona Corporation Commission right now? What is the split between Republicans and Democrats? And what's the big issues before the Corporation Commission right now?
Well, before we go there, let me bring back a little bit to the race. I kind of tell you how I ran in 2018, and the marvel and a real miraculous story is the victory that we talked about. And I attribute none of this to myself or my expertise or appeal to the public. This was all God at work. I ran in the race in 2018 because I knew from my business background I was qualified to do this work. Secondly, I believe I got a call from God to run, so I ran hard at it, but I came in third, and that's called a loss. So I was happy to move on with the rest of my life. As a matter of fact, just the New Year's Eve a year ago, I met the girl of my dreams, and we were actually married during the middle of that campaign last summer. So let
Wonderful.
me share for a minute that rather miraculous story. Um, there, we were standing in my fiance's living room at the end of May when I received a phone call from Justin Olson, who was serving as the elected commissioner. And there had initially been 9 Republican men and women vying for a position on the primary ballot that year in August of 2018. Believe it or not, 7 of the 9 were removed from the ballot, most of them by court action. A couple of them simply withdrew because they could not afford the legal fees necessary to fight the Democratic challenge to their signature collection. Remember, COVID broke out in March, early March of last year when the world locked down. So that stopped people from standing in front of libraries and supermarkets collecting, nominating
Oh, yeah.
petition signatures. So we had 3 open seats in 2020, and only 2 of our Republicans made the ballot. Leah Marquez Peterson, who was also serving as an appointed commissioner from Tucson, and Eric Sloan, a young Republican man. So there were 2 on the ballot, and they were going up against 3 Democrats. If the party had failed to seat a write-in candidate successfully, we would have been giving up one of those 5 critically important seats to the Democrats, just handing it to them free. And as it turns out, the result of this election, you asked the question, how many? There are 5 commissioners, 2 are Democrat, 3 are Republican. So if the Republicans had not fielded that one additional candidate, we could well be 3 Dems, 2 Republicans, and the Green New Deal would have been upon us already in full force and effect. So my being willing to run in that race was really, really important. So the timing is amazing here. It was almost the 1st of June when I filed as that write-in candidate. And the biggest challenge immediately was needing to raise 1,500 valid $5 clean election contributions. And I had all of 8 weeks to do that. So I'm a team sport player. So the other 2 Republicans were also needing $5 clean election contributions. And I waged my entire campaign first focused on getting all 3 of us to those $5 thresholds. We were able, with a lot of good promotion, help from Kelly Ward at the AZ GOP, and many, many other patriot groups, precinct committeemen throughout the state, Republican club members in all pockets throughout the state were buying into the idea of getting that 3rd Republican on the ballot. So I did have an enormous amount of help, and the messaging was excellent, if I don't say so myself. I had the assist of many notables, including a very dear old political friend, J.D. Hayworth, was helping me in messaging. And we had a very strong message. So in 8 weeks' time, we got Leah over the finish line, Eric Sloan over the finish line. Leah needed 600 additional $5 bills when I got in the race. We got her there in 6 weeks. Eric needed 1,000. We got him 1,100 in 8 weeks, and I needed 1,800. We overshoot that 1,500 valid ones because you'll always lose some in the audits. So we needed to get 1,800. And by the grace of God, I turned in 2,019 $5 bills within 8 weeks of entering the race. That also broke all kinds of records. I then had the task, which my other two Republican seatmates there, or slate mates, as we were running for 3 seats last November, they already had gotten enough nominating petition signatures to have qualified for the ballot. What I needed to do beyond what they did, I needed to get 6,663 write-in votes. So when you went to the polling location in that August 4th primary, you saw Leah Marquez Peterson, Eric Sloan, then you saw a blank line. So you, the voter, had to know the name Jim O'Connor. You had to remember to print that in on the line and then fill in the circle. So we focused the marketing campaign again with, I was a clean election candidate. I couldn't take outside money, and the state wouldn't give me a dime until I got the write-in votes, and then only for the general, not for the primary. So would they fund? So the 6,663 was an 8 the hard way in dice. Hard 8 is a tough number to roll. And in this case, the pundits were saying it's impossible, it'll never happen. Well, I did mention I was getting married last summer. So on that date was set when my wife had prayed about whether I should even enter the race. And in short order, she said, well, the Lord told me to tell you to run and watch him open the doors. So the achieving all those $5 contributions, by the way, I know how tough that is because I did it in 2018. It took me 10 months of time, 40,000 miles on my car, driving around the state to meet people and collect $5 from as many as I could. And I only got 1,760 in that year, but I got over 1,500 good ones. So I made my name was printed on that ballot. And in that race, I think I got about 207,000 votes in the Republican primary. So as a write-in, I'm a blank line with an empty circle on the ballot, not on the ballot at all. So my wife and I got married on July 18th. As a good husband, I took my bride out of state on a honeymoon for 3 weeks. The primary, I will remind you, was August 4th. We returned from our honeymoon on August the 8th, 4 days later. And 10 days after that, on August the 18th, the Secretary of State delivered the certified vote count for this write-in candidate to total 45,544 write-in votes statewide.
Wow.
People were stunned with that number. That was about 7 times the minimum number that I had to hit. So that was God at work. I wasn't even here in the state for 3 weeks. Not that a lot of other great Republicans weren't working hard to get that write-in accomplished, but oh my, it was quite a thing. Then, so the win, that was the record setting that had never occurred before. Having then qualified for both the funding and the ballot, my name was printed on the general election ballot. A next miracle here. I received from Clean Elections $174,000, as did the other 2 Republicans and the 3 Democrats we were running against. So we each had an equal amount of money to tell our story. But the Democrats, as they seem to often do, had a substantial independent campaign expenditure operation, promoting the 3 of them as the solar team, as if Republicans didn't think solar was a smart idea. But they wheeled that thing out, and it was funded with $9 million. And so in addition to the 3 of them each having 174 to tell their story, there were TV ads, there were giant signs all over the state. With $9 million, you can do a lot. And then on top of the $9 million in advancing the Democrats for these spots, there was another $1 million of independent campaign expenditure that was spent against Leah Marquez Peterson, Eric Sloan, and myself, 300,000 of which was against me. So I had 174 telling my story, and the Dems spent 300,000 saying that I was some kind of a, I don't know what, I didn't even pay attention to their ads. But I was on November 3rd, the dust settled, and I finished third with 1,434,236 votes.
That is a fascinating
And
story.
worth telling, because that's the kind of a story that gives Republicans hope for the future, particularly in light of the state of our nation and our very own state of Arizona. We must get muscle here in Arizona and focus here. I don't want to say forget about the few Republicans we send back to DC. Remember, our state now is represented by 2 Democrat U.S. senators, and out of the 9 congressional districts, there are 5 Democrats and only 4 Republicans, and Republicans have been in the minority, sadly. So one thing I want to allude to President Donald Trump, that he would say that really got my attention, and it was this: it's not me that they hate, it's you. I'm just in their way.
Right.
And that could not be more correct or more true a statement. So for a moment, they have him out of the way. I'm hopeful, by the grace and the power of God himself, that will be rectified sometime very soon, as I'm watching the enemy within destroy our republic. I've got 3 sons and 2 granddaughters so far. And I loved growing up in freedom, and it kills me to see freedom being stolen by our stolen government.